Welcome to Inspiration and Transformation from the Banks of the Ganga with Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati, an American sannyasi living at the Parmarth Niketan Ashram in Rishikesh, India. Sadhvi is president of the Divine Shakti Foundation, a charitable organization bringing education, vocational training, upliftment, and empowerment programs to women and children. Sadhvi is also Secretary General of the Global Interfaith Wash Alliance and Director of the world-famous International Yoga Festival. Join the musings of an American sannyasi as Sadhvi shares the wisdom and teachings of her guru, His Holiness Pujya Swami Chidanand Saraswatiji.
Welcome everyone to Inspiration and Transformation from the holy banks of the sacred Ganga River in the land of Rishikesh, India. Is there such a thing as luck? Well, luck just means that which you can't explain. When we call something luck, it just means I don't have an explanation for it. Bad luck meaning, well, I couldn't have possibly played any role in what happened. It must just be bad luck. Good luck. Again, there couldn't possibly be a connection, a purpose. I can't explain it. It's just luck. The truth is, everything has an explanation. Meaning that everything is interwoven. So for example, let's say that you are walking through a garden. And as you're walking next to an apple tree, at that exact moment, a beautiful fresh apple drops from the tree right into your hands. Now, if you weren't a spiritual person, you might just say, oh wow, great luck. So special, so beautiful, what wonderful luck. On a spiritual level, people might say, wow, it's my karma. Look, I did something and now this apple has been gifted to me by the universe. Scientifically, they could, if you had a good botanist with good tools, they could take you back through the last 24, 48 hours of that apple, of the rate at which it ripened, and how they could predict to a near mathematical certainty exactly what time that apple was going to be ripe enough that it just was going to fall from the tree. And at the same way, they could calculate, well, if you have to be at this place at 9 a.m. and you left your house at this time and you walk at this speed, here's your velocity. Well, so of course, at exactly the moment that your speed put you in that place, the apple had to fall mathematically. Different explanations. But both of them are other ways of understanding something. See, luck implies that things happen in vacuums, that they exist separate from other things. And what we know about the universe is everything is interconnected. Nothing exists in a vacuum. Everything we do, A, has an impact on the rest of the world, and B, is interlinked with the rest of the world. Karmically, energetically, and even on the very mundane levels of economically. I mean, you look at how many of our economies function, how many of our governments function. And then you look at the ripple impacts of that on other parts of the world. You look at our choices in what we buy, what we wear, what we eat. And then you look at poverty and hunger and pollution and the rest of the world. Well, they're interconnected. So whatever level we look at, everything is connected. So I wouldn't say anything is ever luck, because I do believe in the interconnection of the universe. That doesn't mean that it was planned and plotted thousands of years ago, sitting up somewhere in the heavens, that the universe said, on this date at this time, you're going to have an apple land in your hands. See, to most of us, we've got this idea, either it was predestined thousands of years ago, written in my horoscope, or it was totally random and luck. But actually, there's a lot of other ways of understanding the universe, right? Like, is it luck that you're all being showered with these beautiful flower petals? Right? So, I mean, here we are in a beautiful sacred garden that Puja Swamiji tends with his hands and his heart and his hands. We're here in Satsang. There's a certain wind. It's a certain time of day. It's a blessing, but it's not random. Luck implies randomness. I don't think anything is random. There's a wonderful story, joke that I love of these three guys who are walking through the jungle, and two of them are spiritual, religious people. One of them is somewhat less. And they decide to take a break from their walk, and they sit underneath some trees. And the one who's a little bit less spiritually inclined says to the others, I know you guys really have this God thing, but I have to tell you, I don't buy it. And I don't buy it because if there were a God and God planned things, there would be a lot better planning in the universe. The guy says, look at this. Right over here, we've got these flimsy little vines. Thin, nothing little vines. And on the end of them is what? A huge pumpkin. Like, what can these little flimsy vines, what can they possibly do for a pumpkin? And then over here, we've got these huge trees. Big trunks, big branches. And on the end of them is what? Little nothing mangoes. If there were a God with a planning ability, he would give the big, strong trunks and branches to the heavy pumpkin and realize that he could use the flimsy vines for the mangoes. So out of the other two guys, one of them says, hey, Yad, what you're saying makes sense. I think you're right. The third guy says, I can't explain it, but I just know. I just have faith. And so the three of them close their eyes and they take a bit of an afternoon siesta, and a wind starts. And as the wind starts, one of the mangoes from the tree falls from the wind blowing on it, falls onto the face of the non-believer. And he wakes up with a start. And he says, oh my God. He says, I take it back. This planning is perfect. He said, thank God. This brilliant God put these light 1/2 kg mangoes up in the branches and put those heavy 5 kg pumpkins down on the ground. Because if one of them had fallen on my face, I wouldn't be in very good shape. Thank God it was only a 1/2 kg mango that fell on me and not a big pumpkin. And I love that because so many times in life when things don't make sense, we don't have an explanation, it's so easy to say it's random. Good luck, bad luck, nonsensical randomness. But inevitably, when we're able to step back and have a big picture view, things make sense. We see it in our lives. Not with everything yet. There's plenty of things in our life we haven't yet been given the ability to see the full tapestry of yet. But we've all had experiences, I'm sure, of times when you think that something's random and then you realize, oh yeah, wait, how it all works out. We're coming upon Ram Navami in a couple of days, the birthday of Lord Ram. And I won't go into all the details, but there's a beautiful story of this associated with Lord Ram's birth and the whole idea of karma or luck. And the story is a story that actually begins with Shravan Kumar. There's a beautiful statue in our central garden areas when you walk, a beautiful statue of Shravan Kumar. Young man carrying on his shoulder what looked like one of the old types of scales, but on one end of each of the scales is his mom and his dad. And he's carrying them on his shoulder on a pilgrimage. And Shravan Kumar's parents were blind. And so he was taking them on a spiritual pilgrimage, carrying them. And along the way, they stop at a hermitage. He leaves his parents in the hermitage, and he goes to collect some water for them from the river. Now, flash over to a whole other world taking place at the same time, which is a king, King Dashrath, who wasn't able to have any children. Now, for a king, children are a must, especially sons, but children in general. But he wasn't able to have any offspring despite his 3 wives. They did all kinds of yagnas, ceremonies for him to have children. Now we go back to Shravan Kumar. So while Shravan Kumar is collecting water for his parents, King Dashrath is out hunting in the forest. He was a good king. We're going to temporarily forgive him the hunting aspect of it and call it just the culture of the day. But he was out hunting and he heard what he thought was a deer. And he pulled back the arrow on his bow, and he fired. And it hit Shravan Kumar. Now when he went to collect the deer, and he saw Shravan Kumar, obviously he felt heartbroken. Oh my God, he tried to pull the arrow out and help him. Shravan Kumar said, there's nothing you can do. My life is draining out of me. He said, but my parents are blind and I've left them in the hermitage. Please go and bring them this water. Explain to them what has happened. So King Dashrath goes to the hermitage carrying the water. Now remember, his parents are blind. So as King Dashrath enters with the water, Shravan Kumar's parents are saying, Shravan Kumar, Shravan Kumar. Now what's the king going to do, right? So he's silent. And again, they say, Shravan Kumar, Shravan Kumar. And finally, the king explains to them what has happened and begs their forgiveness. But how do you forgive someone who's just killed your son in sport? Shravan Kumar's parents curse King Dashrath. that just as we are dying of a broken heart due to the loss of our son, so you too will die of a broken heart at the loss of your son. Now remember, King Dasharath couldn't have any children. But this cycle now, this wheel of karma, of destiny, of interweaving threads of a tapestry. So of course, the yagna that King Dasharath does bears fruit. He has not one offspring, but several. We'll fast forward through a bunch of the story. Maybe we'll come back and talk about the rest of the story on Ram Navami. But just to take you to the end where we're talking about these interweaving threads of destiny, karma, tapestries. So Lord Ram is about to be coronated king. He's the embodiment, the epitome of righteousness. Whether you worship him as God on earth or not. Either way, the entire story of Ram is the story of righteousness incarnated. The perfect son, the perfect brother, the perfect husband, the perfect father. And on the day he's about to be coronated, his stepmother says to King Dasharath, you owe me 2 favors. I've got two favors from you. Again, long different story, but she had two favors from the king. And she says, I want one of them to be that instead of Ram, my son, the one from my womb, Bharat, should be coronated on the throne. And 2, that Ram should be sent into exile, into the forest for 14 years. Now you imagine, the happiest day of your life, your beloved son, you're about to coronate him, and you have to actually send him off into the forest. As Ram walks into the forest with his wife, with his brother Lakshman, as he walked off, it was said that as King Dasharath grabbed his heart, and in the time following that, as he was suffering from heart pains, heart attack, broken heart, that he kept calling out Shravan Kumar because he remembered. And I share this story, A, because Ram Navami is coming up and it's just a beautiful story, but B, in our discussion about luck and karma, because you think, God, what bad luck. What bad luck for a king to have to send his son out. What bad luck for Ram. But it wasn't luck. It was interweaving destinies, threads, the thread of Shravan Kumar, the thread of his parents, the whole tapestry. So, no, I don't believe in randomness. I believe that we are living interlinked, impacting lives. And everything has meaning. And so when it's what you would think of as good luck, and you don't have an explanation, no problem. You don't have to overthink it. Just fold your hands and say thank you to the universe. Take it as an inexplicable blessing. And when you have something that you would call bad luck, just understand, again, you don't have to overthink it. Just take it as something that has happened as part of your tapestry of life. And the question simply becomes, okay, what to learn from it? How to move forward in it? How to get closer to God with it? Because at some point, chances are you'll be able to see how things interweave.
You're listening to OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
Hi, this is Christina Ricci with RAIN. Every 2 minutes, another American is sexually assaulted. If you or someone you know has been sexually assaulted, you are not alone. Help is just a call or click away through the National Sexual Assault Hotline. Please call 1-800-656-HOPE, that's HOPE, or visit rain.org, that's RAINN.org.
Brought to you by RAIN and this station.
Welcome back to Inspiration and Transformation. I'm so glad to have you all back here with me.
When we get hurt, betrayed, cheated, harmed in some way, we close our hearts, many of us. Now, first of all, the very first thing to do is to actually say thank you to yourself for closing your heart, because it really was just trying to protect you. It wasn't trying to make things worse. It was your psyche, your ego, doing what it knows how to do best, which is protect you. It's not always very wise. It doesn't always have great vision. But its ultimate aim is to protect you. Not your divine you, but the small ego you. It's trying to protect you. So just at least give it a thank you for, doing its best with its limited vision to try to keep you from getting hurt again. And then you have to make a very conscious decision. And the decision is, I am willing to take the risk of getting hurt again in order to open my heart. See, what most of us try to do is we try to bargain. Well, I'll open my heart again if you promise I'm not going to get hurt. Okay, God, I know I need to open my heart, but just make sure I don't get hurt again, okay? So as long as we're bargaining, it's not going to work. Because the universe doesn't make promises like that. It's sort of part of the package deal. You're born, you're going to die. You love, you're going to get hurt. Sometimes it's because someone betrays you, hurts you, lies to you. Sometimes it's because they get sick and die. But inherent in loving, unless we are the one who gets sick and die very early in life, at some point we are going to be hurt through our love. And if you haven't been hurt through love, you haven't loved enough. You haven't taken enough risks of loving. Or you're very, very young. And so you have to You have to really make the inner decision that says, I recognize inherent in the gift of love is pain. Sometimes the pain is just anxiety. They're out, they should be home, they're not home, their phone is switched off or out of range, you're worried. Sometimes it's just that. But there's always going to be some level of pain, of distress in human love. Soul-to-soul love doesn't have pain. You love me, fine. You don't love me, fine. You're alive, fine. You're not alive, fine. Because it's soul to soul. It has nothing to do with the physical body. It has nothing to do with the karmic dramas. But while we love on the soul level, nonetheless, we are walking that experience of love with our human hearts and our human bodies, with our human minds. And there's attachment, there's expectation, there's hope. And where there's attachment and expectation and hope and agenda, eventually we're gonna experience pain. But that's part of the package. And so you need, in order to open your heart, you need to be really clear, okay, God, I'm going to take the risk. Because the only option is to suffocate yourself to death. It's like being in a place that's really polluted, right? I mean, it's like breathing the air in Delhi. So, I mean, you've really got two options. Option one is you say, well, I realize how polluted the air is, I'm not going to breathe. I'm going to protect myself, I'm not going to breathe. Well, that doesn't get you very far because then you just suffocate and die. And so you end up, if you are, for whatever reason, prepared or planning to be in Delhi for any period of time, you make a conscious decision that says, I recognize that I'm breathing this horribly polluted air. Nonetheless, it's much better than the alternative of not breathing and dying. And so I'm prepared to take the risk. I need to breathe. And in the same way in love, you say, I'm going to take the risk. Yeah, I realize there's a good chance that there's going to be pain again. But my only other alternative is to suffocate and die. Because when you don't love, when your heart is closed, you're not living. But you may find that it's easier to begin loving non-humans. And so in the early days of healing your hurt heart, it may be easier. You may find it easier to begin loving a pet, loving a tree, loving a baby. Right? You begin easy. The tree's not going to betray you. The pet's not going to betray you. The baby's not going to betray you. So you begin slow. And then slowly you work yourself back up to adult humans with free will, with whom you can experience that beautiful connection of love. And the moment you make that decision, you'll be able to do it. It's only your mind keeping you from it. So take the risk. You need it to live.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
OMTimes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth Radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Like Baldwin with People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. I grew up loving circuses and other traveling animal shows, but it never occurred to me what life might be like for the animals. Training wild animals to do things they don't understand takes force. Routine discipline with a hook or whip with the heel of a boot shows the animal exactly who's the boss. Don't patronize animal acts. Please contact People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
757-622-PETA.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with inspiration and transformation.
I find that in our life, the only reason we suffer is because we have this big ego. We identify with our false ego rather than identifying with the truth. Like everyone knows there is a soul, there is an Atma, or there's a God, but we still identify with the fact that we're human. I am this, I am that. And if we look at it, our pride is just so big that we don't allow life to flow in. We don't open our heart. So I just want to know, how can you be humble? Because that's what I feel, if you can become humble and open your heart, then God will come to you.
Of course.
Life will come to you.
Yeah.
Abundance will come to you. But sometimes, and you're trying that, but sometimes, your ego just becomes big and you're not there, you're not aware, and you say something or do something that's not in alignment with your dharma.
You've touched upon a two-part issue. One being the ego and arrogance, and the second being the mindlessness, that we do things when we are not aware. So the first piece is, this is why we need to be mindful. This is why so many of the spiritual traditions, not only our Hindu tradition, but many of them have some practice of mindful awareness. Because if we are not mindful, we cannot be living our dharma. Then we are constantly just reacting to the world. Being mindful enables us to actually act rather than react. So luckily it's something that can be learned. It's why, these days there's so many mindfulness training programs. They're teaching it in schools, they're teaching it in hospitals, they're teaching it in corporations. Because it's really a key to life. But it's a skill, like any skill. And you have to practice it. Fortunately, you can practice it as you live. So you can do mindful eating. You can do mindful walking. And just little decisions like, I'm not going to be on my phone while I'm walking from point A to point B. Neither speaking nor looking at it, so that I can be mindful. I'm going to use the 5 minutes it takes me to get from where I park my car to my office to do mindful walking and mindful breathing while I'm walking. Just little, tiny choices. I mean, how much work do you really get done in the 5-minute walk where most people are just scrolling social media anyway? Do it when you sit down at your desk. Give yourself these moments while you eat. Avoid the instinct to be on the phone or scrolling something or watching something or listening to something. Use it as an opportunity to be mindful. And of course, try to bring in a meditative practice every day that actually teaches that mindfulness. It gives you the deep practice of it. Because whatever form of meditation we do, it cultivates mindfulness. We have to be present or we're not meditating. So fortunately, that's a skill that can be learned. You just have to give it a little bit of time and attention. In terms of the ego, it's really a choice we have to make. We're so used to living and thinking in a certain way. But yeah, you said it perfectly. It creates suffering. Our ego is the greatest cause of suffering. But we only can break free when we recognize that. Nobody's going to be able to convince us that our ego is why we're suffering. Because what we think is, oh, you just don't know. I mean, the ego kicks in, right? Oh, God, this person, when are they going to be quiet? Like, obviously, I'm not suffering. So we have to be aware. We have to be honest about how we are suffering. Even if outside everything's perfect, are we fulfilled? Do we feel close to God? Do we feel like we are instruments in God's hands? Do we feel love and generosity and compassion overflowing from us? And we have just an instinct to give and to serve because we feel so abundant? So these are signs that we are not suffering. But where we feel like we are contracting and hoarding our love, our time, our energy, our resources. When we feel that we've got to make it happen because God doesn't care. God's not fair. Nothing is fair. No one is fair. These are hallmarks of someone who's suffering. Because we've cut ourselves off. We've closed our hearts. But we have to be honest about it. So when you really recognize that you're suffering, and you're mindful, then the moment the ego starts to arise, you allow yourself to sink into a moment of what's really not so easy vulnerability. Because the ego is the answer. The ego's the one who comes in and takes over the moment. We feel safe, we feel contained. But if we don't allow the ego to run the show, then there we are in our vulnerability. And so we have to be prepared and ready to do that. And the only way that we can be is when we recognize that we are suffering, that the other way isn't working. When you realize that it's like the water faucet is on, flowing with this beautiful water, but our bucket is upside down. And so the water is just flowing over the top of the bucket, and we wonder why our bucket is empty. Well, we realize we've got to turn it the right way. But that means doing things a whole new way. It means I don't always have the answer. It means I'm not always right. It means I don't always let myself tell myself a story about how I'm the best or even about how I'm the worst, because they're both ego. But I just allow myself to sit in a moment of vulnerability without a story. And to just feel it, to just be there. And to know that I'm not going to explode or implode or cease to exist, that the sky's not going to fall if I don't have a story about it. The enemy of the ego is our vulnerability. And so, if we're prepared to live in that space of just openness, that's when we get free of the ego. So bring in the mindfulness. Recognize your bucket's upside down. You're going to try a whole new way. And then just as it arises, don't yell at it, because that's just other side of the ego. Just come back to the breath. Come back to your mantra. Don't let it do its thing. Just stay in the moment. Stay in the moment. Stay in the breath. Because the ego gets all up in the mind. So if you're anchored in the breath, in the moment, in the here and now, the ego can't grab hold of you. So just be here. And then you'll see that'll become your new way of being. And you'll realize, oh my God, sky didn't fall. I was vulnerable. I didn't know the answer. I didn't have a story. There was no good guy or bad guy. And actually, look how beautiful the moment turned out. And then you'll have more and more of those moments. And those will enable you actually to connect not only to yourself and God, but also to others in a much deeper way.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Like Baldwin with People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. I grew up loving circuses and other traveling animal shows, but it never occurred to me what life might be like for the animals. Training wild animals to do things they don't understand takes force. Routine discipline with a hook or whip with the heel of a boot shows the animal exactly who's the boss. Don't patronize animal acts. Please contact People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
757-622-PETA.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with inspiration and transformation.
When to go with the flow and when to row the boat with a lot of energy. They actually go together. It's not an either or. We are meant to row those oars, meaning to do our duty, to fulfill our dharma, to act in alignment with that. That's what Bhagavan Krishna spent 700 verses of the Bhagavad Gita to explain to us. How to act. That it's not just go with the flow. I mean, that's what Arjuna was prepared to do. Fine, okay, they're not giving me any land. Okay. Forget it. No problem. Maybe it was meant to be. And that's where Bhagavan Krishna comes in and says, you need to fight this battle. But fighting the battle, meaning doing our duty, doesn't mean that we stop going with the flow of life. Because a lot of times when we are really working at something, I'm sure we've all had experiences where you really put in time and energy and effort into something, and it just doesn't seem to bear fruit. Well, at some point along the way, that's when we need to say, I'm really putting in my sincerest best, and nothing is happening. That's the equivalent of rowing the boat and literally realizing you're going nowhere, and realizing, that's because this boat is actually chained to the shore. Like there's actually something stopping this boat from going in that direction. And I can row and row and row. But unless that chain is unhooked, it's never going to go anywhere. Or rowing and rowing and rowing, not going anywhere, because we're rowing against the current. And for every stroke of our oars, there's a current coming in the opposite direction. And those are the times when we have to say, okay, I guess the flow of the universe is not in this direction at this time. And that doesn't mean that we're wrong or bad or less than or unworthy. It just means the flow of the universe is not in this direction at this time. Maybe in some time the flow will be there. I think about kids with, lemonade stands, right? Well, sweet, beautiful initiative, okay. But in December, they're not going to get very many customers. And now you imagine you're the mother or father of kids who in all earnestness decide they're going to raise money for some really worthy cause, like they're going to do something good. So they put out a lemonade stand. But the lemonade stand is in 6 inches of snow because it's December. Well, it's unlikely they're going to get a lot of takers for lemonade. Not because it's not a great idea, but just that the flow of the universe isn't in that direction at that moment. So you encourage them, just wait, sweetheart. Wait till June or July. You will see. The flow will be there. So sometimes it's a timing thing. Sometimes it's just, you know what? Flow of the universe, not in the direction of this project. Not in the direction of this invention. Not in the direction of this plan. Okay. And that's when we learn to let go. So it's really both. We must stand, we must serve, we must absolutely do our sincerest best with all of the tools that we have, but then we leave the rest to God. And again, this takes us back to the core message of the Gita, right? Do your best, but don't be attached to those fruits of your labor. So that's where we fight, we do, but we don't know where it's going to go. I love how in the Gita when Arjun says to Krishna, he says, but I could die. Now Krishna's God. He knows how this is going to turn out. He knows how this is going to end. He could so easily say to Arjun, no, you're not. Don't worry about it. We've got this thing in the bag, I promise. But he doesn't. He purposely doesn't. And he says to Arjun, yes, you could. But to die in the service of your duty, your dharma, is better than living hundreds of years but not fulfilling it. So we stand up, we work, we strive, tanse, manse, danse, and we leave the rest to God. And if we have an opportunity, if we realize we're rowing our boat upstream, and we can simply turn it around. So the solution when you realize you're rowing it upstream isn't, oh my God, forget it. I guess I'm just meant to not get anywhere. But maybe the flow of the universe is actually in the totally opposite direction. And if you could just align yourself and your boat with that direction, then you'd see how fast you go. But that requires the ability to surrender into the divine will.
This brings to a close this hour of inspiration and transformation. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad to be together with you all each week. And I look forward to being together again next Thursday, same time, on OMTimes Radio.